Hey, welcome back to the Travel Ins podcast. Today, my guest is Presley Tennant. She's a country singer based out of Southern California, which I enjoy speaking to anybody that actually makes. I always get asked country music in California, and I'm like, there's a lot of good country music in California. So here's just another example. How are you today, Presley?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
So far, so good.
Very nice.
So, do you like being a California constituent of country music at this point?
I actually really do. I feel like there's not a lot. There is a, I will say the country music scene is definitely growing out here, which is
Yeah.
really cool to see. I feel like over the last, I would say 7 to 10 years, it has really flourished. Because I felt like before, I mean, a lot of California sound that really comes out of Southern California is more of like the rock, hip hop, pop, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And to see it like really flourish with all these different festivals and venues. I mean, you've always had Stagecoach, but that was pretty much all we really had at one point.
Not always. I remember life before Stagecoach, but go ahead.
I was like, honestly, I have yet to have been a Stagecoach, and I am dying to go because it's only an hour away from me. But I don't know. I feel like it's definitely grown over the past few years, especially recently, and maybe because I'm getting to play at all these venues and different things like that. I'm really seeing it firsthand. Um, but I think it's really cool, and I love being from Southern California because of all these different influences. So I get to bring that into my music,
Yeah,
and I
kind
think
of
it
the
really
pop.
shows.
And I know you kind of started off in a pop genre,
Yes.
and then you found your voice being in country. So it's a good mix. I mean, it worked for Taylor Swift, so it might just work for you.
I think it's really cool, especially where country music is nowadays. I feel like there's almost no limitations
Yeah.
anymore, and I love that because for somebody like myself, I love listening to all different types of music. Like some of my favorite music is some like 70s rock. I blast that in the car everywhere I'm driving, and everyone's like, "That's not what I was expecting." But I'm that, or even like some screamo every once in a while, which is really hard to believe, but I do enjoy it sometimes. I have to be in the mood. Most times I have to be angry, and then I'm like, yeah. And the person next to me driving down the freeway is like, is she okay? Um, but no, I think it's really cool because there's so many different influences going into country music nowadays.
Yeah.
That there's something for everyone.
Do you find you're crafting your music to be more pop, or is it just kind of comes out of you and it's country, but it's
I think for I will say it's all kind of situation dependent. Depending on the day, or it's like maybe I listen to a song and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that song really speaks to me and I kind of want to model. I wouldn't say model, but take some inspiration from it.
sure.
It kind of just depends. I mean, the next few songs that I have lined up ready to come out later this year, they're so different from each other, and I think that's really cool. Because you're able to do it all. I mean, I mean, even from Morgan Wallen and the stuff that he's putting out now, he's putting out 35 songs on a record. And it's almost like its own playlist. Like you could listen to everything. There's a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of like the traditional country. There's a
Yeah.
little bit more like the rock and edge, to the bro country, the pop country, whatever you want to call it. But it's almost like you can go to that one specific artist and it's all right there.
Where do you you are your own artist, but where do you consider yourself?
I would like to say, oh, that's such a hard question. I definitely gravitate more towards like the more powerhouse kind of vocals in a way. I love
It helps that
something
you have a
that,
powerhouse voice, so go ahead.
well, thank you. I was like, I try. I don't know if I always
You don't
succeed, but I
try.
will definitely try.
You do.
Thank you, thank you. I think a lot of it for me, I grew up listening to like Carrie, Miranda, Chris Stapleton, and then in the pop world, it was like the Christinas, the Fergies, and then
Yeah.
with like Etta James and Aretha Franklin, like I love a little bit of that soul, and then with some heart mixed in there. And so figuring out a way to do all of that while still making a really catchy hook or a catchy chorus,
Yep.
um, I think is really cool. And so trying to find that nice blend where it captures all of it, where it's like, but I don't need to be wailing on every single song because you know what, that can get a little annoying after a while. And you're like, this girl is just screaming at me the entire hour and a half I'm listening to her. And I'm like, I'm not trying to. Um, but I don't know. I definitely say I settle in that kind of style of
Yeah.
country very, very comfortably, but also still testing out the limits and trying new things.
Do you change up your set depending on because you have so many original songs? Do you change up your set depending on where you're playing? If it's a
Yes.
smaller venue, you don't hit the powerhouse and you're doing boots in the park and it's wide open.
I feel like for the most part, it's a nice blend of everything. I will change up the set and change out some songs, and the more that like my band and I play together. I mean, we've all been playing together for like 2, 3 years now, I want to say at this point. And so we all kind of like know what we like to play and what's comfortable, but I always like to give a little curveball every once in a
Sure.
while. And then like we depending on the venue, like we'll pull out some Kansas, like Carry On Wayward Son, and I was like, we're gonna try it out. I always say that that's the warm up song, but it's not. If you listen to the song, it's like 6 minutes of like straight guitar riffs, and I'm
Yeah.
like, sorry guys, this is my break now.
I'm gonna go in the back.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'll come out in 3 minutes, sing my part, and then I'm out again. No. It just kind of depends on location and where I'm playing, but I love doing things like get the crowd engaged because
Yeah.
I love when everybody is like interacting. That's one of my favorite things ever. And so the more I can do that, the more fun I know everybody has. So,
Okay, so for traveling wise, what's been your favorite venue so far, and what venue is still on the bucket list?
oh, that is such a hard question. I I think for me, anytime I play out in Tennessee, I'm out there about once a month. But anytime I play out in Tennessee, it's a little special because actually, you know what? I'm taking it back. I love Tennessee, but I will say I was down in the Keys in Florida
Okay.
a couple weeks ago, and it is so beautiful down there. Last year was my first year with BMI Key West Songwriters Festival. So I kind of went into it and I knew nothing about it. Like I'd
Yeah.
been to writers rounds, but I never played around. I showed up and I didn't know how to play guitar, and I was like, I hired somebody to play guitar for me, and then everybody is playing guitar, and I looked at myself and I was like, I look like the biggest idiot right now. So I did that weekend. I found out they wanted me back out for Annapolis in Maryland, and I was like, I'm learning how to play guitar. So every single night I'd come back home and I'd practice for like 4 or 5 hours. My sister's calling me like from like the room 2 doors down.
Yeah.
She's like, shut up, I'm trying to
Enough.
sleep. And I was like, too bad, put some headphones in. Um, but I think Key West is the prettiest place because I mean the water is just crystal clear. It was so nice out. It wasn't it was humid, but it wasn't like super humid.
Yeah.
I may or may not have gotten fried. I looked like a lobster by the end of it.
It happens.
But you know, I was like, it turns into a tan. It's fine. And then bucket list. I think the biggest one would be Red Rocks
Yeah.
or Red Rock. I mean, the venue I could feel like just kind of speaks for itself.
Have you seen a
It is.
concert there?
I have not, but I'm dying to go to one.
Yeah.
I've heard the altitude really messes things up though.
For singers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
and
like,
then
I'm
feel the
walking
wind
up and down the
influence too.
steps. But it just seems, I don't know, I feel like it's like a movie, like it doesn't seem real.
I used to train jujitsu and I thought I was in good shape and I went up, I was there for work in Denver and I went and trained and I was like, I can't breathe. It's so weird.
It's the altitude difference. I don't know. I was
Yeah.
like, I snowboard. I'll go up north and I'll go up to Mammoth, and I'm like, I think I'm fine. And then I get up to the top of the mountain and I'm like, oh my God, like am I really out of shape right now?
Yeah.
I know I am, but I didn't think I was this bad.
That's go get ready for Red Rocks that way.
Yep.
What about the Opry?
That is also another bucket list. I think it's so cool. I got to take a tour of it. It was one of like my I want to say like my fourth or fifth time out in Nashville. My mom was with me, and so we were like we had a free day, and so we are like let's go take a tour of it, and just to step inside there and to feel the musical like energy. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's like you could feel the magic. That This is where so many incredible artists have stood up there every week, and
Did you
it's
do the
like you
backstage
felt
tour?
yes.
Yes, I did too. We went in the green room and saw the lockers and
It was so cool, and then people were stepping inside the circle and singing, and I was like, "This is like I had goosebumps the entire time," and I was like,
yeah,
"I don't want to be back here until I'm a part of it."
that's what all the singers say.
Yep.
For me, I had no
It
problem staying in the circle. I knew it was a zero option. So
what song did you sing? That's the
that
question.
was my one chance to actually step in the circle. So I had no problem with it.
I was like, I want to earn it. I want to be there, and I want to feel the magic happen again.
I was going to ask you because I obviously I can't imagine being 16 and going on The Voice and singing in front of, Adam. And I actually went not to that show, but I went to The Voice taping with my daughter as a fan. And so to do that at 16, I mean, do you get nervous anymore, or is it just kind of like been there?
I during that time, I typically it's really funny. I when there's bigger crowds and things like that, I never get nervous. I'm not I it almost feels less intimate. And so it's like, oh, I can just go up and do my thing. But when there's like less than 15, 20 people, like if I'm in a meeting or like a conference room and I have to sing in front of people and then I can see all their eyes and their faces, that's when I get a little nervous because I'm like, what are you thinking right now? And then I'm not focusing on the song and I'm like, what? I just need to get out of my own head.
So you're saying
Um,
the NAM show was more nerve-wracking than
Well, because it's like you have people walking by, and
yeah,
I'm like people watching at the same time, and I'm like, there's too many distractions. I don't think I have ADHD, but in those moments, my brain is like pew pew pew
like
pew.
a guitar, like it's be everything.
Exactly. And then, but when I was on The Voice, it's kind of funny that it was like a month-long process for each round.
Yeah.
So we'd be there preparing. I'd have to go to school every day. And then we do wardrobe, and then we do interviews and rehearsals, and then vocal lessons and things like that. And the entire month leading up to it, from especially for like my blind auditions, I was not nervous. I was like, you know what? I feel good.
I got
It's all
this.
muscle memory. And then all of a sudden it came to the day of, I had to be up at like 4:45, 3:45 or something like that. Crazy early. I was like, I don't think I even slept that day. And I was hanging out in the back, and then they're like, okay, Presley, it's your time. And so I'm standing there and they're like, okay, like walk around, like what take us through like your process. And I was like, oh, I'm fine. Like I just go quiet always before a show. And then I felt fine standing in the waiting room, waiting to go. And then until there's double doors and they open up. And so the double doors open up. And that's when like all the nerves hit me. I was like, knees are shaking. I'm wearing heels. You have to walk up a bunch of steps. And I was like, I'm going to eat absolute
Yeah.
crap in front of
Yeah.
everybody. And they're going to
I'm gonna
turn
pile
around
it.
being like, oh my God, is she okay? Not because I sounded good or they wanted me on their team. It was like, oh my God, did she die?
Is she
Like, get
bleeding?
an ambulance. No, but as soon as I got on stage and the music started, the nerves kind of settled, and I just was able to really like focus on that moment of time.
And then having Kelly turn for you, that'd be pretty cool.
That was like full circle moment for me.
Yeah.
I like to say that she was part of the reason why I started singing. I mean, she was my first concert ever. I used to sing her song "Because of You" at every single talent show growing up, which kind of got my start into the music industry. And then I got to meet her, and I loved. She was like one of my idols, and she still is. And so I when she turned her chair, it was just like a moment of like pure joy. I was
Okay.
like halfway singing the song, and I was like wanted to do a little Irish jig or something. And
Yeah.
I was like, I can't. I still got a minute and a half left. But as soon as the song ended, it was just like the most amount of like relief was off my shoulders. And then getting to work with her, and she's just one of the most genuine people. It was so cool to see, because you know how a lot of people say like, oh, don't ever meet your idols because they're gonna
Yeah.
let you down. She was the complete opposite. She was like the best thing. Like I was like every time I walked in, my mom was with me, and my mouth was just open, and she's like, "Presley, shut your mouth. Like
Yeah.
flies are gonna get in there." It was that sort of thing. And she was just so kind and so real, and I learned so much from her. And then after The Voice ended, it was like the season finale, and I got to come back and sing, and she invited me out to her show in Vegas. And so I got to sing with her on my 17th birthday, and brought me out a cake and sang me happy birthday. And I was like, this is not real. This is absolutely not real. We got to sing the song that kind of started it all. It was just so, never in a million years would I think that I
And
would
I
have
gotta go back
been
to
there.
I gotta go back to school the next day.
Yeah, no, I was done with school at that point. I was like, peace out. I'm good. I had to go back later that summer. That was fun.
Yeah, all I remember from going to the voice taping was my daughter. She was in high school. She leans next to me, and I'm like, because that's a long. I don't. People don't realize that's a long day,
Yeah,
and they redo things and all that, and then the order that we see it on the show isn't what the order that it was necessarily filmed in.
yeah.
But so we're sitting there, and she looks over to me. She goes, "I think she's going to tell me something." She goes, "Adam's really good looking in person too." And I go, I didn't need to hear that.
I remember everyone on my season had the biggest crush on Adam, and everybody like wanted him as a coach, which I kind of did want him as a coach, but not for the same reasons as them. I was like, he
Yeah.
reminds me of my dad. Like, there's no BS. He's just gonna say it as it is.
Yep.
And I was like, oh yeah. And they were like, why do you want Adam? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like he'd be like my dad. And then they were like, oh, okay. After all these girls are coming in, they're like, he's so good looking. And I'm like, he's a good looking guy, but that was
Yeah.
not my reasoning.
You wanted the straight shooting aspect of it.
I
Totally
said,
get
no
it.
sugarcoating. I got thick skin. No one can tell me anything. I was like, well, they cannot tell me something, but I have thick skin. My feelings don't get hurt easily. I was like, if it sounds like crap, just tell me it sounds like crap.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
I'll fix it. So, yeah.
So that there you go. What out of you've played with some phenomenal talents so far.
Thank you.
I mean, you got to Tim McGraw, Kelsey, I mean Kelly Clarkson. Who's on the bucket list of people you'd like to play with?
Oh, I would say
Who'd you like to
Chris
do a
Stapleton.
duet with?
Oh my God, Chris Stapleton.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I feel like that's kind of like a good. I mean, I've been a really big fan of Chris for the longest time. And I remember the first time I ever heard his voice, I was like, he's not even saying anything. He's just riffing. And I'm like, take me to church. Like, holy crap, it is insane the amount of talent that someone can hold. Um, and it's like you feel every single thing that he says.
Totally agree.
And that was something that really stuck out to me. It's like it could just be his voice, but it's really cool when there's talent and it's undeniable no matter what setting it's in. It could just be him by himself, and it's like you're going to be stopped in your tracks, and that was something I really really admire. And so he's probably one of like my top ones.
I got you. I always say like for me, Jennifer Nettles has just a quintessential voice. Just like she's a phone book singer. That's
She's one of the one that's like how I've going back to Kelly, but that's how she is too to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
she could sing anything and everything under the sun. I hate to be one of the artists that she covers their songs on her show because I'm not gonna lie, she outdoes them all.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I was like, everyone's falling victim to the Kelly Clarkson method, and that somebody's gonna outsing their own song.
Exactly right.
But I mean, I think it's really cool though because she turns it into her own, so it's really hard to compare. But also, I'm like, maybe I'm just partial to Kelly. Maybe I shouldn't say that out
Oh, no,
loud, but
Kelly's
it's the truth.
phenomenal. That girl.
But I do see Jennifer Nettles like that too because she is, and I feel like I feel like she's underappreciated
I do too,
because
actually.
she's so talented, but not a lot of people get to recognize that.
It's kind of weird because like I saw Sugarland at the Greek, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, it's the Greek theater. It's in Los Angeles. It's like
Yeah.
and totally non-country. It's like watching Chris Stapleton or
Yeah.
Zach Brown. It's like you just but to see her sing is just phenomenal. And
Yeah.
then but she does the TV hosting and everything else. So
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, I cover a Sugarland song basically every time I play. I do Down in Mississippi, and that's one of my favorite songs just because
yeah.
it's so fun and upbeat and a little rowdy. And it's like, I don't know, I get to like run around the stage, and that's like my favorite thing ever. Um, I don't know, there's a few songs that really stuck out to me that like people really know about Jennifer Nettles, but also I'm like, they don't get to see like the real, like her just by herself, like out there type thing. Like
Well, her
voice is
solo
just.
album is phenomenal.
There was one video I watched of hers just recently, and I can't remember what it was, but it was so. I had goosebumps the entire time. I can't remember which one it was. I'm gonna find it, but I remember listening to it, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like this moved me in like ways that I didn't even know it could have happened.
Yeah. And you're getting there.
Trying to.
Exactly.
I'm like I'm enjoying the journey one step at a time, and I think that's the best way to look at it. It's a very fun industry, I will say, but I've also been in it since I was 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm
That,
like, ooh, 12 years now. Like
That's
I'm at the age no one cares about anymore. It's like 21 was the milestone, 22 was like, yeah, okay. And I'm like,
you're good till 30 now.
that's, I'm like, I got 8 years. We got this.
But personally, you'll have to worry about 26 because that's when you can rent your own car.
I still do that. I through AAA, they waive all the underage fees, and I'm like, you know what? I'm good. That's how I can go out to Nashville once a month.
And then your medical insurance and everything else. So
Yeah, that's the part I'm not excited for, but you know, whatever. I'll get there when I get. I'll cross that bridge when it's time.
you're fine. So I wanted to kind of talk to you about your fashion.
Mhm.
Have you approached any of the companies that make clothing and say, "Hey, what about a Presley Tennant line?"
I haven't said Presley Tennant line. I was more like, oh, like let's collaborate, and then most times they just don't reply. Totally fine, but you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I'm like, worst case, it's gonna happen. They don't say anything, and I keep going on my way. I would love that though. There's a lot of different brands that I love, um, and so to do something like that would be incredible. I mean, I feel like between like what I wear on stage, everything is between my mom and I. Like she helps me out a lot. Like I swear she has a much better fashion sense than I do because she like finds the coolest thing. She went to Boot Barn the other day down the street, and the one in Norco is like a little bit more like utility, like actually going to work, like on a
Yeah.
ranch type thing. She went down to I forget which one it was, and she comes back and she has like a giant bag full of different options. She's like, "Okay, I got this. I got this." I was like, "No, you make my job so easy, Mom. Thank you." She has the coolest style, and she really is able to like see the vision and just kind of put it together. And I'm like, I would never think of doing that, but it always turns out the best.
Well, we gotta get the Presley Tennant line going. That'd be pretty
That's what
cool.
I'm saying. I said, let's make this happen.
What would be what would be your top five brands?
Ooh, I would say I I love
Leave a blank if
Idlewind.
you don't want to exclude anybody.
No, I would say I really love Idlewind. I love the pieces that they have, and specifically like their boots and
Oh, you're
things like
not going to
that.
get that one.
Yeah, I know. So it's all
That's
right.
Miranda's line.
I know, but I do love Idlewind. Um, Anything like I love understated leather. It's very expensive,
Yeah.
but it is. So the pieces that they have are really like one of a kind
That's,
type
yeah.
thing. Um, I don't know. I think I take a lot more inspiration. Like I shop a lot of my stuff like on Revolve because
Yeah.
it's really easy. It shows up in a day, and then it's free shipping on the way back. And I'm like, they're gonna cancel me at some point with the amount of stuff that I get, and then return all of it because I'm not gonna wear it yet. Um, but I mean, there's so many different brands on there. I love anything that's kind of like a showstopper piece.
Yeah.
I was like, I like to say that I have a lot of clothes, but it's the clothes that you can only wear like every once in a while because they're so out there, and you're like, someone's like, yeah, you definitely wore that last week, and I'm like, why does it matter? It's clothes; they're meant to be worn.
That's
Um,
my wife's problem.
yeah, but it's all right. I mean, I get to wear some fun stuff on stage, so I'm like, I get to try things out, and
Yeah.
sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So there was a couple outfits that I look back and I'm like, what the hell was I
Woo!
wearing? But you live and you learn. That's the biggest thing.
See, that'll be the book. You can put a book together of Presley's
Yeah,
book of Presley's looks.
exactly. So it's a lookbook.
There you go. So I saw that you actually have some nice tour dates coming up.
Yes.
Looks like you're staying a little West Coast, but you said you're going to Tennessee a lot. So
Yeah, so I'm out in Tennessee about once a month. I've been doing that. Been going out to Tennessee for the past 4 years now, but consistently once a month as of last year, from January up until now. And then I'll be playing a lot this summer as of right now. There's more dates that are being added, like a little more out of state sort of thing. And so I'm really excited. I get to go back to Arizona and Tempe for Fourth of July,
yeah.
and do a
Uh,
big Fourth of July celebration at the Tempe Beach Park. And so that was one of the coolest venues so far that I've played, like crowd, like audience wise.
right.
And I did that last year, at some point. I can't remember when. And then directly from there, I'm headed up to Utah to go play down in St. George, which I'm very excited
It is
for.
beautiful. Yeah.
I've yet to have been. I think I've driven through Utah, or if I have been to Utah, I was very little, so I don't quite remember it. But I'm really excited to go back, and then I'll be hitting a few dates down in Vegas.
Yeah.
I'm like,
All
now I can
Reds.
hang out. Yeah. I'm really excited for that one. And then there's a few other things that are coming up right now, but I can't say too much yet.
And then you have a new single coming out, but I mean, I'm still listening to somebody like you. So what's the new one?
So the new one is called Bad Decisions. Because
Okay.
sometimes some bad decisions are made, but the greatest stories always come out of it.
Yep. Totally
And
agree.
I feel like everyone at some point can relate to it in a way, which is really ironic because I'm probably one of the most boring people anybody has ever met. I'm like in bed by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I'm kind of a grandma. Um, but don't get me wrong, I do enjoy my nights out, but it's like once in a blue moon. Recently it's been a little different. I don't know. I think because I'm playing shows now, I'm like, oh, I can actually go out and hang out with everybody now. I
Stay
don't have to
awake
just
and
go home. Yeah, because before if I went and played somewhere that was a 21 and over event, they'd be like, okay, you're done playing.
you're out.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, bye, thanks, guys. Have so much fun. No, and so this one, I feel like me being from Southern California, I really wanted like the feeling of palm trees mixed with some steel guitar
Okay.
in there. So it's a little bit more in like the beachy summer vibes, which I'm really excited for. I love the song. It's really fun. It's just like let's just have a good night, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes some bad decisions happens in those good nights, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
All you have to say about that.
I don't know. It's a fun one, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear it.
I always say, have you heard You and Tequila? Kenny Chesney and Grace Potter.
Yes. Yep.
If you listen to the lyrics, it's written in Southern California about Mulholland
Yep.
Drive, and because Dina Hill, who wrote it, co-wrote it, lives in the valley.
I was like, we're representing California out
Yeah.
here. I was like,
So
I love it.
because I was listening to that song, and all of a sudden, I I went to see her. She was doing a little acoustic set, and the song had
Mhm.
just come out by Kenny Chesney, and she starts singing. I'm like, why is she singing that song? And she goes, I'd really like to thank Kenny and Grace for singing my song. And I'm like, oh,
That's
okay,
the coolest thing ever. I feel like when you like, that's why I love when I played the songwriters festivals because it's like you see the people that write all these songs,
yeah,
and sometimes you don't even realize it. I feel like now that I'm always around it, I do know when people are like, who writes what songs. But beforehand, it was like I only heard names or like I didn't see them out too often or anything
yeah.
like that. Because I mean, they're on the opposite side of the country. But now that I'm there and it's like to see the songs that are being cut and like how well those songs are doing, it is the coolest thing ever. And to hear how the song came to life and what the story behind it was, and like they're like, oh yeah, it was about this, but to the artist it meant something completely different. But it works in each way because music is like very subjective. It just depends on the situation for each person.
Well, even over the years, it'll change.
Yeah.
As you go through a different relationship, or you move, or and you hear the song again, you're like, oh, that
Yeah.
means something different.
It's really cool. I will say that. But I don't know. It's really cool also when you get to hear some California references and then me being from here and I'm like, I know exactly where that's at. Or like,
I
I
know that
just
when
drove
she was
down
saying
that
about
last
Mulholland
week.
Drive, and I'm like, what?
No, it was so funny. I had someone come out and we were driving up to LA and they were like, "Oh my gosh, is this where like these movies were filmed?" Or like this was happening and I was like, I it's one of those things when you're in it, you don't really realize it
Yeah.
until somebody points it out and you're like, yeah, I guess it was like it was right here, it's down the street, or this is where all this was done, and they're like, oh my god, and their mind is blown, and I'm like, this is so
I'll see.
fun.
Wait till you get older, and your friends from other parts of the country or world will come and say, "Drive me around."
Yeah.
Like, all
i
right,
love I love playing tour guide though. I think
I
it's
do
so
too.
fun.
Torrance, like right by my house, is where they recorded the NWA album.
Yep.
You're like, that
That's so funny.
that's this little brick building right over here.
Yep. And half the time it's like when you're in LA, you never know what buildings are which because a lot of these studios are
Yeah.
like on the outside they don't look the best and it looks like they're almost like abandoned buildings, and then all of a sudden you walk in there, it's like state of the art equipment that's cost more than my life
You should
sort of
go see
thing. And
Sound City. It's in the valley, right off the 405. And I mean, if you drive by, like you just said, it's a brick building. You'd be like, ah. You're
yeah.
like, oh, Fleetwood Mac, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden,
It is so
all recorded
crazy.
there.
I remember the coolest studio that one of the coolest studios was out in LA, and it was the Jim Henson lot. And
Yeah.
it was all gated. I mean, they had Muppets on the side of the building. I mean, like
Yeah.
actual like Muppets, like 3D. And I was like, what? And they're like, this is where this was filmed. And then you got like Westlake that you would never have known is there, where We Are the World was recorded. And it's like I think it's like Studio B or something like that. I don't know, one of them. And I might be confusing it with Jim Henson, but I know when I walked in there, I was like, this is insane. And Camila Cabello was just like walking around, and I'm like,
Well, that's
what?
even like The Boys, right? It's like when we went on the set, they're like, "Oh, Jeopardy's filmed over there." We're
Yep.
walking by. Mark Cuban walks by us because they were getting ready to film. So, and we're like, Mark Cuban says hi to my daughter, and
It's the coolest thing. And I love, especially down at Universal, it's like everyone is there all the time. I remember growing up and we'd go down to Universal Studios and we take the little studio tour on the bus and we'd drive by, and then I was like, I drove past the same building every single time. Little did I know that was like the Voice wardrobe, and I spent all my time on those lots, and I was like, this is so weird being the one walking around right now.
hey,
But it was so much fun.
belong here now.
Yeah.
I'm
I was
sure
like,
you have.
I'm finally not getting yelled at for hopping off the bus. Okay.
I'm sure you'll have a few more moments of like the
I said that's the goal, but I mean,
EMAs, ACMs.
said I can't wait for those days.
It'll happen. So, other than you got some great shows coming up, everything I saw was on your website. Uh, how do you like your fans to stay in touch?
They can find me on all my social media, which is at Presley Tennant, so PresleyTennant, or you can go to my website and everything is linked there, from new music, tour dates, merch, uh, everything that you can think of. And I run all my social media, so whatever somebody sends, I'll be the one responding, that sort of thing. So I was like, I don't know. I was like, even if they got a question like, hey girl, what you doing? Like, let's chat. I'm always the one responding. I love it.
I can vouch for that. Well, thanks again so much for the time, and I appreciate you doing the drive you did this morning. I know that drive.
No worries. Thank you so much again for having me. I really appreciate it.
And we'll have to stay in touch, and then maybe if you head over to Vegas for the rodeo,
Yeah.
then
Oh my
sure.
gosh. I would love to.
Hey, you say that. I'm there for 16 days. It's a long time in Vegas.
Oh, that might be a little long for Vegas.
Yeah. And
But I'm like, at least it's eventful. That's the thing.
working all 16 days. Yeah. So,
Hey, you only have to do it what one time a year out in Vegas
yeah.
for that?
Yeah.
Gotta live it up. It's a city that never sleeps, right? Or is that New York? I said this to somebody the other day and I was like, I can't remember if it's Vegas or New York.
Both.
Okay. Well, I know whatever
Different
happens in
reasons.
Vegas stays in Vegas. That's what I know.
That's not true.
Well,
That's
I
the
watch
saying, but
this.
that's not true.
It always comes back around. It's so funny.
It's a family show.
Yeah.
So, again, thanks so much. And I'm looking forward to watching you perform live sometime.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Presley. Have a good day.